Hello and welcome back to Sharks Happen. Today we're going to go over a spearfishing attack, an attack on somebody that was just playing in the surf, a snorkeler. We're also going to have a redefinition of the word attack, at least shark attack, by one of my favorite places. So stick around, we're going to have a great show. Okay, now we're going to head over to Pau Amarelo Beach, and that is in Pernambuco, Brazil, and the date is April 23rd of 2003. Tiago Muchado, he is 17 years old, and he is out doing some swimming with two friends. They're well offshore. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's rainy, and it's kind of cloudy, and the water is muddy. The rain explains the muddiness. And they are over 600 yards out at 5 p.m. So they're 600 yards out. 2 meters or 7 feet of water, and they're doing some swimming when suddenly he is attacked by a shark. The shark goes after Tiago and attacks his leg. Tiago reaches down with his hands to defend himself, and he ends up getting wounds on his hand, and his foot is also injured in the attack. It looks like a lot of damage to the front of the shin, so not to the back. They don't show much to the back, but it looks like the damage was more to the front of his leg, on the lower leg shin area. And then his foot ended up cut and his hand ended up cut. They ended up getting him in, and he survives the attack. They said that it was a 40 centimeter, so somewhere around 8 inches wide jaw that went ahead and did the biting. They said that they think this is either a 2 meter or 7 foot bull shark or tiger shark that is responsible for this attack. If a tiger shark would make sense, bull shark, that would make sense too, but they usually don't stop when they start like that, especially 7 foot bull sharks. We've had them drag people out into the deep water from the shallows before, so anybody's guess. I would think maybe a tiger that got a hold of him, because a bull might not have stopped. So that's our attack on Tiago, an attack, not an attempt to predate by a 7 foot bull or tiger, so we're just going to put a 7 foot shark. Now we're going to head over to Winkipo Beach, that is in Victoria, Australia, and the date is March 18th of 2014. Mark Byrne, 42 years old, he is out doing some surfing with others. Doesn't say how deep the water is or how far off the shore he is. He's in a very popular surf spot there, though. I guess it's very well known for good surfing. And he's probably sitting up on his board. It doesn't say that he's sitting up on his board, but the story itself, I'm thinking he's sitting up on his board. A shark suddenly leaps out of the water and clamps down on his board. It's biting on his board, and he's trying to push it off. It actually bumped him as it got up on the board. He's trying to push it off. The shark would not leave the board, so Mark jumped off the board into the water, waited for the shark to release the board, and then when the shark did, the shark released the board, rolled off of the board, and he looked around him. There was a lot of surfers around him. He says, I looked around and everybody scattered. There was nobody around him. Once the shark landed up on his board, they all scattered, and he was out there by himself. He wasn't fazed by this. He wasn't injured. He went ahead and went in, but he sounds like he took a wave in and came right back out, because he continued to surf for about an hour and a half after he was bumped by the shark that jumped up on his board. And he went out later that afternoon too with no incident. So he ends up having his board attacked, and everybody scattered on him. So he says it was a 5 foot gummy shark. They have gummy in quotes, so I don't know what a 5 foot gummy shark. By the attacks I've gone over, I would call a gummy shark basically that 7-gill that really can't do much damage with the jaw power and the teeth. You don't hear much, it can't even get through wetsuits most of the time. So that's what I refer to as a gummy shark. And that attack over in Florida by that Brit, James Oatley, I think that he might be, with the way that they say that he was lifted up out of the water and he didn't need any stitches, just needed shots. I'm thinking the only shark that could probably do that would be that 7-gill shark. But, the books that the GSAF copied everything except for the wounds says that blood was running down this guy's leg pretty good when he got out of the water. So that's why James Oatley always stays with me. It's one of those that I think that they aren't telling everything about it. So that's our attack on Mark Byrne, 42 years old. An attack, no injury to the board, but it sounds like the board survived this thing too. This gummy shark probably doesn't have good clamping power and damaging teeth, and it just rolled off the board and he was fine. So I wanted to cover this one, and that's our attack on Mark Byrne. Okay, now we're going to head over to Stratham Beach, and that is in Western Australia. The date is March 31st of 2012. Peter Kermann, he is 33 years old. He is out with his older brother Gian, who is 34, and they are out off of Stratham Beach, and they are doing some crayfishing at a very popular crayfish spot. They're 1.8 kilometers from shore, so they're just under a mile and a quarter, I would think it would end up being, if you want to go mileage on that one. But they're offshore. It doesn't say how deep the water it is. It says that it's limited water visibility, and at about 9:30 in the morning, a shark comes up and it attacks Peter. Now, they must have both been right together, because it says that Gian actually wrestled with the shark temporarily before the shark finally took his brother off. So the shark grabs onto his brother, and Gian starts beating on the shark, and the shark ends up taking his brother away. He gets into his boat, obviously, and his boat and another boat end up getting the remains. They end up recovering the remains in another location. They don't say the damage to the body, the wounds, but I would think that this was a feeding event with the way that this went. Now, possibly, it doesn't mean exactly that it was, but I'm just going to say that because I can't find any information on the actual wounds to the body. And the way that it was an attack, I would think that that's more of a feeding event. We've had pretty violent territorial attacks like Jose Miranda, where it took his head, arm, and shoulder off, but they ended up recovering the body without having any more bites to it. Even though it took the body away, it didn't take any bites out of it. It just grabbed it and took it away. And they also recovered the arm and the shoulder. So it attacked him, bit all that clean off, and then just took the body away, but wasn't interested in feeding. That's a rare event when they're that violent and they take you away and they don't end up consuming any of the body. So I would think, right now I'm going to have to put this down as an attempt to predate, because the shark grabbed him and took him away, and no telling if the shark was still in the area. There's no mention of the shark after that. Like I said, Gian ended up wrestling with the shark. The people that went ahead and looked at the wounds said that this, it was very hard to tell a bite mark from the wounds to the body. That's why I think it's pretty bad. And then they said, but with what it's happened, it's probably around a 13-foot or 4-meter great white shark. So that would fit what had happened there. So for Peter Kermann, we're going to put this down as an attack, an attempt to predate by 13-foot great white shark. We're going to put down in there. There was a Western Australian, we're going to go over this really quick, because I get these questions, why are you so tough on marine biologists? I'm not tough on marine biologists on what they do. I mean, most of them do their jobs and they do them well, and most of them have nothing to do with shark research, but they'll talk about it. Those are the ones I have an issue with. So here's an issue where a guy is actually here, Rory McCauley. I'm going to start showing you the things that I run into where people just yap and nobody asks them, nobody corrects them. And I saw this with the bull shark studies I did, to where nobody went out to check on this stuff this guy is saying is going on. And this is a problem with the whole thing. It's kind of like what I see in global warming type things. Science, they say. So Rory McCauley, he is a senior shark research scientist for the Western Australia's fisheries. And this is after a 2012 attack. So this is fairly recent, and this isn't, I would say that's an expert. I would say everybody that asks me, how do you know more than these people? Well, this is an expert, right? Western Fisheries senior shark scientist. So it's not like this guy is nobody. And he goes ahead and he's quoted after this attack, because there was 4 fatalities, I believe it is. There might have been 5, but they were within like September to March. So you're talking a 5-month period, and they're pretty close together. But here, this guy gets to say what he wants. Senior shark research scientist says, I'm not aware of any series of fatal shark attacks, this number in such a short period, anywhere in the world. Jaws don't ring a bell to this guy. There was 4 right there. They were as close together as these and closer in time. And we just went over, if anybody watched the cluster series that I just started, the first attacks I went over, I think that's the first ones I went over, was the attacks in Papua New Guinea of the late, I think mid-60s. And those were within a few months, which is closer in time. And that was 5 females ages 9 months to 13 years old. And here this guy gets to say to the press, he gets to say it to the press. I get to say this to you, to the camera, yet YouTube won't let me get it out to anybody because they don't want anybody to know the truth. So who's misinformation? This guy who says that that's unprecedented, or me who's covered 2 clusters? You know, one of them's famous that they made a Jaws movie out of it. You can't make that up, but nobody asks them. Nobody says, well, what about Jaws? No, they just let them say that and go on about their way, and that's why it's all a bunch of games between the media and the marine biology. I call it shark world. Anybody talking about sharks, nobody's going to question them. Nobody's going to ask for their, you know, backing on why do you always say these are mistaken identity, which they hardly ever are. When it comes to fatalities, they're talking dogfish. So I wanted to get into that, and because I'm going to start pointing out, you know, which one of us are really misinformation, disinformation. I'm going to go back to the real word for it because they probably went away from it because of how the connotation is. Propaganda. They're all into propaganda. So that's our attack on Peter Kermann. Attack, fatality, attempt to predate, 13-foot great white shark. And I'm going to head off of 5 Mile Beach. That is South Province, New Caledonia, and the date is March of 1979. Manuel Teau, T-E-A-U. He is out doing some spearfishing. He's with a group of men, and they are out at 8 o'clock at night, and he suddenly disappears from the group. So they might have been in a meetup. It doesn't really get into it much, but usually when they're meeting up, there's a time they'll meet up, and then he doesn't show, and then they start a search. So the divers searched all through the night for him, and finally, it sounds like the next day, no telling what time, they found a piece of clothing, a piece of his suit, and they said that there was some flesh also on the suit, and that there was, you know, it didn't look like fish, and the fishermen in the area said, yeah, it doesn't look like a fish we've ever caught. So it sounds like it's, you know, human remains that are stuck there with that strip of cloth or whatever piece of clothing they found. They didn't find anything else that I've been able to find, so it sounds like he was consumed by the shark that grabbed him and took him away. It says in the GSAF that it was later hypothesized that he had a seizure, had an issue, and then was scavenged. But when you disappear, when you're with a group like that, and they find a piece of clothing, and that's all they find the next day with probable human flesh involved, that was an attack. That's why that guy's gone. Most of these where the guy is out there and he's doing the spearfishing and he disappears, they find the body. It's probably a shark. Sometimes they find it miles away and it has shark bites on it, but in those cases it could be something where he, you know, caught up in currents and taken away. But most of these guys disappear right where they're with the others doing their activity. In this case it was spearfishing. So this will go down as a shark. We don't know what kind of shark. We know it's probably has to be pretty large. So a large shark that fits our books. An attack, a predation. We don't know what type of shark on Manuel Teau. This reminds me of, you know, the spear fishermen I'm going to talk about a little bit at the end of the show when we get into that, because down in the Keys there's been at least a couple of them attacked fairly recently and fairly close together. So I wanted to talk about that real quick, but that's our story of Manuel Teau. And now we're going to finish off our unprovoked attacks over off of Kauai Island, which is off New Caledonia, and the date is May 9th of 2015. Yves Berthelot. He is 50 years old, and he is with his wife and 6 others, friends and family, they're on a catamaran and they're traveling through the islands. It doesn't say what time, but it's in shallow water, about 50 yards from the boat, 50 feet from the boat, 50 yards from shore. And Yves is with, there's 2 others in the water along with Yves, and he is in shallow water when an 11-foot bull shark comes up and attacks him. Shark bites him in the leg and in the arm and in the groin. Others on the boat ended up pulling him out of the water. Everybody on the boat, it sounds like most people on the boat were healthcare workers, and they were trying to keep him alive for the 45 minutes it took the helicopter to get to him, but he passed away before the helicopter even got to them to get him to assistance. The marine biologists they spoke to about the attack says it doesn't appear to be a territorial response, just wrong place, wrong time. It doesn't seem to have wanted to eat him. I mean, it well could have. It doesn't sound like it did. It just bit him a few times and went on its way. Sounds like a territorial attack to me. It might have been out to eat him. I don't know. I don't know how the people got him out of the water, but with 2 other people in the water and it bit him up a few times, I mean, usually a shark, especially a bull shark, 11 foot, if it wanted to take you away, it's going to take you away. It doesn't appear to be the case that it was out to feed, so I'm not going to put it down as a predation, even though it is an 11-foot bull shark. I'm going to put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate, 11-foot bull shark on Yves Berthelot. Okay, before we get into the end of the show, what are you thinking? And it's for my favorite people over at the GSAF this time. I wanted to get into a couple things we haven't talked in a while. I got this gift. I got these shark earrings, and as you can see, I shut the jaws on this one, but the jaws open and shut on these things. They're so cool. This is from Camille in Colorado. Thank you so much, Camille. These are awesome. Reminds me of everything that I got from Bonnie over in Virginia, not in Arizona. Bonnie in Virginia, who I hope is still around. She's the one who got me the mug. She's made me up some coasters for my car, those little round coasters that fit in the cup holders, coasters for here, the mug. I still have my shirt there, my shirt with my people from Jaws. We're going to need a bigger boat shirt that I got down in the Keys when Mike, Debbie, Jeff, and Luann came to visit me. And I did see your comment, Alicia. I see that you're still with me. She was the first person I ever met that recognized me from the show. So that is Alicia. She came down She came down to Florida to see me all the way from Georgia. And it was fun to see her, and it was great to see everybody that was there. So I wanted to show you what I got there. Now I also want to discuss a couple other things. I've been looking at, of course, my shark tracker to see what's going on with the sharks. And of course we have a shark party up and down the coast. Some of them are down around the Keys, but there aren't too many down there. They mostly are, the ones that are pinging off the whole coast, all up and down America right now, on the east coast of America. And then you go over to Australia and it's almost nothing. As far as, you used to see Katya, some bull shark that hangs out over there in the Cairns area. I usually see Katya over there, and she's usually pinging over there. All I'm seeing pinging is north of Australia quite a ways, because there are 2 whale sharks, and then you go over to the east of Australia, which you run into Norfolk Island and New Zealand and New Caledonia, I think it is. But anyway, there's only a couple of tigers that are pinging over there, so not a lot of activity over there. Well, you got a shark party over here. I've also had people, thank you Ali and others that have sent me all these stories. I have seen the beach sharks, great whites that beached. I think one was somewhere down off of in the Gulf, so off of Texas or somewhere like that, Mississippi, somewhere down there that's on the water off the Gulf. I know that one washed up there, and I think that was the first one that washed up. And like a week later, I think it was, that I noticed another one washed up in like North Carolina, and that one looked pretty big. By the pictures, hard to tell because the camera's closer to the head of the shark and the people are standing further behind it, so there's no real way to get a judgment on the length of it. But and I haven't looked into it. I just saw the video real quick of that thing being on the beach, and I was thinking that's got to be about a 12-footer. So people are like, oh, 20-footer, 12-footer is plenty for me. That's a huge shark. 12-foot bull shark's a huge shark. 12-foot great white has much more girth, so it's a monster comparatively. So I wanted to get into that. There's been some shark attacks that have been brought to my attention also. My sister had let me know. She's down in the Keys, and she had let me know that there was just 2, within 36 hours, there was 2 attacks down there. And I know there was at least 1 or maybe 2 attacks on spear fishermen like a month before or just weeks before that. So they're having quite a few attacks right now down in the Keys while I'm not there, of course. And I don't know when I'll get back down there. And so I wanted to let you know about that one. We're going to cover at least one of them. Ali, I think, sent me the one on there was a surfer that was bitten by a bronze whaler, and it's smaller than we'll normally cover, but because it's a bronze whaler, I'm definitely going to cover it. And a woman had just lost her leg over in one of the islands that has a couple different names for the islands. I don't know exactly where it is, but she ended up losing her leg. My wife actually texted me that one and sent it to me. I texted her back, and you might think it's crude, but I told her if they do like I do, they wouldn't have a problem. They'd still have their leg. I mean, I don't tell people not to go in the water, but if people ask me, should I go in the water? I'd say no. You know me, I don't go in the water. My family thinks that's funny still, because they don't worry about sharks too. So that's all that's on my mind when I get close to that water, is where are the sharks. So that's the story of the attacks that have been happening. I wanted to go over that real quick, and now we'll get into the end of the show. Russel Easton. This happened over at Cat Island in the Bahamas, January 22nd of 2012. Russel Easton, he is down in the water, and he's got one of those big cameras, and he's filming tiger sharks. So it's probably a dive where everybody dives, regularly, and these sharks are used to having people around them. It makes it easier for you to get into the water knowing that they're around people a lot, I would think. So he's down there, and he's at the bottom of the water. I don't know how deep it is, and there's a picture of this, and the GSAF has the picture in there right up on it, and they show the shark. It's kind of like swimming down towards him, so the shark is tail is up above him, coming down, and you can just see the shark's head, and then his camera hands around the camera, and the shark seems to be biting at something. So yeah, I bet it's something. It took his camera from him, and it took Russell's camera, and it took it about 5 feet away. As Russell's swimming away like mad, it just dropped his camera and swam on its way. Didn't go mess with them any more than that. But the story here, and the what are you thinking, is for the GSAF. This is the GSAF report right here, see? And this is not. See, everything's in regular small letters except for the word not. And this is what it's about. This was not an attack, but is listed in a GSAF spreadsheet due to media reports referring to it as a shark attack. Oh my. We're back into redefining words, because that is an attack, and we already have a category for that attack. And when you're in the water and you're doing something and the shark ends up doing something back to you, we call that provoked. So if you're in the water and a shark is swimming by and you punch it or you kick it, like that guy that had the shark try to take his octopus, and he kicked the shark and it turned and bit him 4 times. That's a provoked attack. Now, we don't know that the shark would have came and tried to bite him had he not kicked that shark first. A situation that I probably differ a lot with these marine biologists and stuff is if you shot a shark. And I'm not talking about a little 5, 6, 7 foot shark. If you shoot a large shark that's in the area, kind of threatening, I'm not going to count that as provoked, even if it comes to bite you afterwards. I don't blame anybody, for sure. You see a 10-foot, tiger, bull, whatever it is, I'm taking a shot. I'm not waiting. So in those cases, I would not make it a provoked attack, but this definitely is a provoked attack. It just attacked the camera, just like those attacks on the surfboard. Camera, I think, survived the attack. So there's no injury. But it is an attack. It's just provoked, and it's a provoked attack without injury. So that's our show for today. I hope you liked it. 3 or 4 days, I'm hoping to get out the next episode. I'm also getting back to diving in to catch up. I have about 300, I think, attacks we've gone over. I got to add to the spreadsheet. I got to add the new columns, and I got to get through there and get the numbers that I'm going to need, because I'm about to do a Shark Attack Myths episode. Probably 3 or 4 episodes from now, I'll be able to have it ready and get this thing going. But I have to get my stats to back up what I'm seeing, at least what I'm seeing with my eyes. I want actual stats, numbers, what we've gone through. So hopefully I'll be back in 3 or 4 days with another episode, and that'll continue every 3 or 4 days. And these are full episodes, not the little episodes. Once in a while I'll be doing a single episode if I find something that still sticks in my mind that I want to go over again, or that I want to see if there's something new, or if I find something new that's pertinent, that we should have that information out there. So thank you for being here, and as always, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.